Good morning, Lacers. How's it going? Bonnie Violet here, a queer chaplain. And today is day 11 of the lives as part of Lacing Your Narrative with the Spiritual Thread live stream workshop series. We are in our second week, and we are focusing this week on when did our understanding of religion change? And I was going to share with you a big part of my process, or what's been helpful, is to talk with other people, to listen to other people talk about things that I've been challenged by. And so I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I've been able to participate in the last couple of days that have been super helpful in me beginning to see things a little bit differently, specifically around religion. And so last night I had one of my drag and spirituality interviews, interviewed my 23rd drag artist, Miss Pentecost. And in our conversation, she shares about her kind of first experience kind of going into church. And this timing was actually right after her having to kind of stop living with her parents and living with grandparents because of her sexuality. So I'm going to share this little clip with you. Also in the description, I have a link if you want to listen to the whole interview after today. We're just going to listen to this little part. Here we go. When did, I guess, church? When did you become a church lady?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that boyfriend came from a family that went to church every Sunday, and Sunday was like a church ordeal. It was a small non-denominational church, but his family made up like 50% of the church membership. So he like invited me, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. We'll see what's going on. I went, and we were standing around afterwards discussing where to go for lunch. And it was like, are we going to Chili's or are we going to Cracker Barrel? Like, those are the churchy places to go hang out afterwards. And the pastor came over. He goes, I'm going to be real awkward for a moment. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm about to be ran out of church on my first day. Like, I'm an extremely competitive person, but like that is a whole new thing. Mm-hmm. So he's like, listen, I don't know who you are or why you're here. And like the room was silent because we were all standing in a circle and everyone's eyes was on me because at that time the boyfriend wasn't out. And so I was just tagging along. And I was like, oh dear God, like I'm just this gay friend who is here. And he goes, but you right here, right now is enough. And this is all you will ever have to be. And then he said, mic drop, and walked away. And I was like, I don't know what the flop to do with this information that was just shared with me. And it was like an extremely spiritual moment. And like now I would say like it felt very like Holy Ghost. Something was moving in that moment. Because after he said that, I realized that like the church is a place, it's a family that I can be a part of and just be myself and just like dwell and exist without having to explain or anything. So it's just really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Kara says, thank you, random boyfriend. That was such a great interview last night. I really encourage you to take some time if you want to listen to it. I think I put the YouTube link, but it's also on podcast. But I had such a great conversation with Miss Pentecost. And I think the exciting thing is, we have almost a 20 years difference in age and grew up in a similar kind of environment and a similar familial understanding of sex and sexuality that was uncomfortable, more so like with, I guess, yeah, it wasn't necessarily church. It was exciting to hear that church was kind of like the place that first held, or I guess not first, but held him as he was, like right from the get-go, and affirmed him. And so I thought that was really cool to see that, because church was that for me when I was young as well. Church was my place. It was my safe place. It was my place to go to. So I'm going to go ahead and share one more thing. I've been, as it is, like, you've been following, like I grew up Christian, so that's kind of like where my my stuff is. And I had been really questioning a lot of things, in particular, like kind of understanding of the Bible and all that. And I came across this podcast. It's called Yass, Jesus. And it's a couple of folks who do this podcast. I think it's like every Sunday or something like that. And they talk about scripture in particular. And I wanted to share just a little bit of one of the stories that they share that I think it's just helpful for a lot of us to see, it's like, how can we put this text into work for us now? How can we see ourselves in the text? And that's true for anything. I've read Janet Mock's book, and or I've read other things, and when I can identify or like kind of connect with that, to me, I feel like that's like the purpose of a text sometimes. And so I think even the Bible is created in that sense too, of something that we can read and gain some sort of strength. Or I think the big thing is really to realize that you're not alone. That's one of the things, like, you're not alone in your thinking. You're not alone in your feeling of isolation, or that you don't fit, or that there's something just a little bit more extra about you that that doesn't allow you to kind of like show up in the space like everyone else is. And so this part of this process too, with a queer chaplain and podcasts and stuff, is I've just found out that there's so many of us out there. And so this is just like another way of like, if you're struggling with kind of figuring it out for yourself or whatever, I mean, there is an element of that, but it can be helpful to have little sparks and prompts, if you will, of seeing how other people are doing it. And so this is a Bible story that many of us probably grew up with or heard. I mean, I think even there is a musical about this particular story, but it has a little bit more information to it than what I knew before. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you all. Here we go.
They threw their brother Joseph in the well because he wore what can be called a princess dress.
So the direct translation of Joseph's coat in the Bible,
the original word, and I'm probably going to butcher this, is kitonet pasim.
Right.
That was what they called the coat, the colorful coat that Jacob gave to his son Joseph.
And nowhere in Genesis is this word brought up. There's only one other place in the Bible that we hear of this word.
Right. And in that verse, and I don't have it in front of me, so, hit me up later, slide in my DMs if you want that story. But later, when the Bible does bring this word up again, ketonet pasim, it's about a woman who is wearing one.
A ceremonial,
and she was a princess.
And a virgin. So it's a ceremonial dress for a virgin princess to wear.
Right. Daughter of the king, virgin. Mm-hmm. So when you interpret this word literally, it means princess dress. Well, that's how I literally interpret it. Princess dress. So Joseph's 12 brothers, the 12 tribes of Israel, are jealous of him. And Joseph's 12 brothers work in the field, and they're hardworking men, right? And Joseph is one of Jacob's favorite sons and gets treated differently and is more of the messenger and kind of like the office manager, right?
Yeah,
Joseph is
like
the
daddy's
office manager, right? And all the brothers are just the hard workers. And so when they see that Jacob gave Joseph this colorful coat, they become jealous and angry, and they throw him in a well. And after beating him up,
part of it potentially is rage over it being a non-masculine
Exactly.
item.
Like their masculinity was probably threatened.
Sure, like they were thinking perhaps he was bringing shame to the family or being too loud or being too audacious in what he was wearing.
It's the same thing that happens with trans people today. You know, I remember being out with one of my genderqueer friends. We were walking around Beverly Hills. They were wearing a fur coat and I was wearing this kimono. And we were just
Sure
being
you were.
silly.
Yeah, just being fun.
And we got harassed by a car that pulled up beside us and was kind of like just lingering there, and like they were playing games, we could tell, right? And so this still happens to trans people today, just as it was happening in biblical times with Joseph.
I think it's interesting.
Josephine, should we say.
That's my grandma's name. I think it's so interesting because I saw a meme that said that every single gay person that I know has been called a faggot from a moving vehicle, and I think straight people should just be aware of that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted that on my Facebook, and the reactions I was getting and the stories of when that had happened to so many people. I remember being in Fort Lauderdale, and it was with one of my first boyfriends. I mean, this was kind of like, I love you. I love you. Like we were just like kissing and holding hands.
Mm-hmm.
We had broken up at that time, but remained good friends. And we had gone to the gay beach together, Sebastian Beach in Fort Lauderdale, right across from the W Hotel Grill. Because you know, if gays are going to pick a gay beach, it's going to be near the nice hotel in the mall. But we were at Sebastian Beach and we were sitting there and we were enclosed. We weren't even like ready for the beach. We just wanted to check it out. And I remember seeing like a big muscle queen and like a rainbow Speedo. And then all these people like at home, right? Now it's like a very familiar sight, but then it was like, wow, Florida, you know? So we're looking around and he goes, you know, this is just so incredible that you could just sit here and be gay and nobody cares. And then someone from a moving vehicle went, facts! Like, just like it sounded like The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And we both just like cracked up because it's just like, man, we can't even have this moment, you know? But it is an interesting thing to talk about, especially in relation to Joseph and like the ridicule and persecution that he faced just because of wearing something that was a little bit different, a little bit possibly misgendered for the norm of the day, and so very colorful.
Yeah. So he comes out to give a message to his brothers who are working in the field. His dad just gave him this coat, and his brothers see him walking up.
It is kind of insane. Can you picture working in a field and like working really hard, and then all of a sudden your brother shows up in this gilded coat of like 1,000 colors,
coat.
And he's like, "Hey y'all!" Like I'd be like a little pissed.
Hi, once you're done with those grains over there, do you mind just herding the sheep back into the farm?
Daddy said y'all gotta herd the sheep now. You know, that is funny. But
I mean, I would get mad at a sibling who had a lighter job too. But I think what was really festering that day is like, what the hell is he wearing? You know?
Yeah, what he's showing up like that.
Right.
Like, I think that was what was bothering everyone.
Right. And so they beat him up and they throw him into the well.
He's actually described also as a child as someone who was sensitive, someone who was soft-spoken. There's a lot of mentions in the Bible of different people being hairy or whatever, and they speak of Joseph being smooth and soft to the touch. And so he had a very effeminate appearance and disposition and personality, which leads many scholars to believe that perhaps Joseph was trans or Joseph was genderqueer.
Yeah.
So that.
How do I? All right. So those were just a couple of things to share with you that I've been just kind of listening to. Again, I put it in the description. As the story goes on later on, it's actually quite the story. But basically, I think one of the things that's really relevant too is at the end of it, not to like spoiler, but he ends up much later in life, because they tell us they throw him in the well, they beat him up, they steal the coat, they put blood on it, animal blood, and they tell their father that he was killed. And so many years down the road, there's a position in which his brother, and they sold his brother into slavery, but the brother ended up kind of getting to a place in life where he was in a much better position and actually was in a place of a lot of power. He became really close with the king. Anyways, I'm not going to go through all that. But there is a moment where he gets to show up for his family and like kind of like be the person who helps his family and his brothers, even though they did that to him, and even be able to see that how, I guess for me, the God aspect is being able to see afterwards how the good that comes out of everything. To me, I feel like that's what spirituality is seeing the good out of everything. It's not that, to me, it's not that everything happens, like this thing didn't happen so that I can learn this or learn that or learn this, but because this happened already, I can look at it now and see what good came from it. At least that's my understanding. Maybe there is some whatever, but that's just kind of where I'm at with some of this stuff. I'm right at that 16 minutes, so a little bit longer than I like to go. Today, there is every Thursday at 5 p.m. there is that Zoom room. Again, that link is in the description as well. Have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow or maybe this afternoon. Bye.